So to pick up where the last video left off, we've got a lot of other tools on here. So you've got a calendar you can use to help organise yourself. You can actually put your school timetable on your calendar. You'll learn how to do that in a few weeks' time. Then all of the rewards that you get electronic rewards in year 7. So you can see the different rewards that you've been given there. This button here is where you go to see what homework you've been set. So all of the different homework that you're set in school by teachers, they will put that online on Frog so you can see what that is. Probably tell you what it is in your lesson. They might even ask you to write it down in your planner just as an extra reminder, but it will always be logged online so that you and your parents can see it. And just a word about that, your parents will get a login to their version of Frog as well. And on that parent login, they will be able to see what homework you've been set as well. So your parents know exactly what homework you're getting. Learning toolkits, I'm not going to take you through in detail, but that's a place where you can go to get help with things like sentence starters. So it'll give you ideas about literacy, numeracy, maybe even how to work well as a group and things like that. Now, your teachers will help you to use those learning toolkits at different times when you need to use them in lessons. You'll also find out more soon about things like Accelerated Reader, brain training, various different apps you can use on your Chromebook, and there's some different tests there on numeracy and things like that. Now, these buttons in the middle here occasionally change when new things come along that are important, or maybe we stop doing certain things that are on here, like the brain training or the numeracy test, things like that. So you might see different things on there at different stages of the year, but the top 8 things here and the Accelerated Reader will always be the same. Now, to the right here, we have notices. So every morning your learning guide will read out what's on notices for your year group, but you can also go on there and have a look yourself to see what notices are there. Now, I know that's blank at the moment. That's because this screenshot was taken during the holidays when there was no notices to see there. Now, down here, if you want to see different subject areas in the school and get to their resources, you can click on that button. If you want to see any of your electronic work that you have saved on Frog, you can see that there. And there's also a fair bit of information here about things like uniform and stuff like that. Contact details for staff, so you can see their email addresses. So you can explore that information section yourself to find out what's there and use that when it's useful. So that's Frog, and you'll be using Frog a lot and hopefully get used to it very, very quickly. Now, to talk about Chromebooks and Google Drive. So a lot of you are going to be getting Chromebooks if your parents have opted into that scheme. And for those of you who don't opt into that scheme, you'll probably notice that there are 4 PCs in each classroom, so everybody has access to use computers in lessons. We're going to get the Chromebooks to people who have opted in as soon as we can. And there's also a reminder that's gone out to parents for anybody who forgot to opt in and still wants to. So you can use your Chromebooks to access things like Frog, Google Drive, where you can do lots of work on documents and presentations, things like that. And also the internet itself, where not only can you use that for research, but there are a whole host of different tools you can use for learning on there. Places where you can make mind maps, places where you can make infographics, where you can get ideas, you can do quizzes, and things like that. So there's a lot of tools which you'll be introduced to throughout the year in different lessons that you can use online. And the Chromebooks are really good because they're fast and they get to the internet very, very quickly. So you should find them really, really good to use. I've already explained a little bit about what Google Drive is, so I'm not going to go into that in detail, but some tools that you should be aware of. Google Docs, which allows you to make documents and do written work. Google Slides, which allows you to do presentations. If you've never used it before, it's very similar to PowerPoint. Google Sheets, where you can do spreadsheets and you can do calculations and things, make charts. There's Google Draw, which allows you to make things like posters and drawings and do things like desktop publishing. So if you've not used Google Draw before, but you have used Microsoft Publisher, Google Draw is very similar to Microsoft Publisher. And you might also use Google Forms, which allows you to either answer questions or maybe even make your own surveys for other people to ask them questions. So there's some of the main tools in Google Drive. Now, on to your responsibilities. So we've got all these great tools that we can use, and you're going to be using ICT a lot, and hopefully you will enjoy it. But you need to make sure that you're abiding by our acceptable use policy. So you should have seen this already because your parents have been sent this home in a pack. They've signed it, and you should also have read it and signed it already. So this is kind of a summary of what's in that acceptable use policy. So you need to make sure that you're keeping your password private. Never share it with other people. It's your responsibility to make sure that nobody can misuse your account or mess around with your work or anything like that. So make sure you've got a good password and you keep it private. Respect each other. So you should be nice, kind when you're talking to people online. That's not just in school when you're using things like Google Docs and communicating on there, or email. It's also when you're outside of school and you're using your own websites that you are signed up to. Now, none of you are old enough yet to have some social media accounts like Instagram, Facebook, things like that. So I'm going to assume that you're not breaking the law and you don't have those accounts. But if you do have anything online where you communicate with other people, please make sure that you are respecting them, you're being kind, and just think about how the things that you write make other people feel. Use school tools for schoolwork only, so you shouldn't be using them for anything other than what they're intended for. You should not be taking any photos or videos of other people without their permission. And we want you to be careful of viruses. So how do you do that? Well, just make sure that if you get an email and it's from somebody that you don't know where it's from, that you don't open up any attachments because they could contain viruses. If you go to a website and something flashes up that says, please click here to download this, then just be wary of that because it could well have a virus that's hidden in it. We'll do some more work throughout the year talking to you about these things and helping you understand how you might get viruses and things like that. Respect all the IT equipment. So whether it's your own device, Chromebook, something that you use at home, or whether it's a school computer, please make sure that you treat it with the utmost respect. Don't do anything that could break it. Don't unplug any cables or anything like that. Please be careful with keys, not to pick them off or anything like that. Sometimes people do that unconsciously without really thinking about it. Don't go hammering the keyboard or the mouse pad if you're playing a game, because that's probably going to end up breaking those things. And be careful when you're carrying Chromebooks around, not to drop them, keep them in their protective case, things like that. Don't put drinks next to them. We'll give you some very specific advice about this when you get the Chromebooks, but I just want to put it in your thinking at this stage. Now, the consequences for misuse depend on what you do, but it could be things like you lose your ICT access, or you maybe lose your internet, or we take a Chromebook off you for a period of time. We might get in touch with your parents. You might end up with a detention. There's lots of different consequences for breaking your acceptable use policy, but that consequence will really depend on what you do. My advice is just stick to the AUP, and then you won't have any of those things happen and you won't have to worry about them. When you do get your Chromebook, for those of you who opt into that scheme, which I imagine will be the vast majority of you, please make sure that you're bringing them in every day. You've got them charged. Make sure that you're looking after them and their chargers. If you have any problems, report them straight away. We'll give you advice on how to do that. Don't drink next to them. Careful about where you leave them on charge so they don't get stood on. Don't leave it lying in the middle of the floor, plugged in. Please don't use or touch anyone else's Chromebook without their permission. Only use them while seated. You shouldn't be walking around while trying to type on them. Just use them for work during lessons. We don't want to see anybody going on any websites that they shouldn't be on, which would distract them from the work that they're meant to be doing. And please make sure that you put them away or close them lid straight away if your teacher asks you to, if they're trying to give instructions. So your teachers will sometimes ask you just to close your lid on your Chromebook while you listen to what they're saying. And you must make sure to do that immediately. So once again, my 5 minutes of this video are nearly up. I've got one more short video for you after this, which won't take the full 5 minutes that are remaining.